Hi, my name is Kimberly, and welcome to Kimberly's Sandbox. Back in 2015, I decided I was going to figure out a way to be able to liberate my life so that I could travel and feel like I was truly living. And after one hell of a year in 2020, 2021 came, and everything came together. Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Kimberly's Sandbox. And as you know, I'm Kimberly. So I wanted to talk to you today about importing your animal to Thailand, specifically talking about importing a dog. So I have been going through this process over the last couple weeks, just trying to figure everything out. And as promised, I am going to go ahead and share that information with you all. Some things that you're going to need to do before you even start the process. Number one, make an appointment with your veterinarian. And your veterinarian has to be APHIS, APHIS certified. And I remember what that stands for? No, not at all. But I'll put it somewhere down here once I look that up for you. That's really important for the export process as well. We'll talk about that in a later video. But anyway, make an appointment for your pet to be seen by a veterinarian. And your dog is going to need very specific vaccinations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll include a list of them here up on the screen for you. These are all the vaccinations that your dog is required to have. So you're going to need to be able to present a vaccination certificate. Another thing that you're going to need to do also is present a rabies titer result. So the rabies titer and the vaccinations all have to occur at least 21 days in advance, but no more than a year from the time of your departure. We are planning early July departure, which is why actually back in March, I started this whole process and got my pet into the vet to make sure that she got all her vaccinations. And the thing about that too is that the rabies titer generally has to be sent out to be done. It's a blood draw. And it has to be sent out, and it takes somewhere between 5 to 6 weeks to receive the result back. So that's really, really important, and hence why you want to start the process early. But remember, if it's over a year, it's no longer valid and it has to be done again. Okay. Another thing that you're going to need to do certainly is figure out which airline you're going to fly your pet on. Now, there are lots of different airlines, of course, that provide services in flying your animals overseas, whether it be as cargo or whether it be actually in flight with you. You have to figure out, okay, it just kind of depends. Is your dog an emotional support animal or a service dog? Then, of course, they're going to be able to ride in cabin. And then there's another whole issue with that, diapering of the animal, and of course their certifications have to be presented, and there's a whole shenanigan associated with that. And then also you have to make sure that your pet can tolerate certainly being in a crate. Now, many of the airlines put out their own guidelines for the crate expectations. Now, the crate just can't be any old crate. It has to be airline certified. It also has to have not plastic closures on the side where the lid kind of hooks into the sides and the bottom. It actually has to have metal like screws and locks. So very specific. And there's also measurements you have to do of your dog to make sure that your dog has enough space in there. And there's requirements as far as how much, providing water and food. And then their documentation has to be actually attached to the carrier. And then there's also fees associated with putting your dog below And those fees vary as well, depending on the airline that you're flying. So you do have to do your due diligence upon choosing your airline, which ones are really known for being dog friendly, and really facilitating the export process and assisting. I did my research and I decided to go with Singapore Airlines. So Singapore Airlines, one thing that's really important too is that you're staying within the same like carrier family. So if you fly out with one specific company out of the US, you want to make sure they're parented with the other company, that you may have a connecting flight in someplace else that will eventually bring you into Thailand. I wanted to make it as simple, as easy as possible, so I just stuck with Singapore Airlines. Now, us being in Arizona, the big thing here, it's 117, 118 degrees right now. And this is like a major heat wave for the end of June. So you cannot fly your pet in cargo out of here, out of Arizona right now because of the heat. They just stopped doing that. And I think that extends until September or October. It's just too stinking hot for your pet, too dangerous. So what we decided to do is actually we're going to rent a car and we're going to drive to LA and we're going to fly out of LA. So that's one creative way that you can kind of get around that if you live in, a hotter climate such as Arizona or, New Mexico or Texas. Drive someplace cooler, fly out of there, where you can go ahead and consider, placing your animal in the cargo area. Okay. So we just talked about some of the veterinarian stuff that you have to do. Do that way in advance. Research your flight, figure out which flight you're going to take, and book it in advance. You're going to want to definitely get on your airline's website and resource their area regarding animal transport, the fees, the requirements of their, of course, the carrier. Because like I said, it's going to vary per airline and how they do it. But just make sure you know what you're doing and you've covered all your bases. And if you don't know, just make the phone call to the airline here in the States and they can really help guide you through that. So remember, if you are flying with a service animal, there's only going to be so many slots or spaces for animals on the actual flight. And again, cargo wise, I think there may be some limitations there as well for how many animals that they will take. Now, here comes another huge piece. So if you are getting your animal out of the States to another country, you must find out how to go about getting an export. I want to call it an export license. So this is what's important, because since your veterinarian has to be APHIS certified or verified vet, that comes into play when you're trying to export your animal, because you have to make sure that they are qualified, because once they complete the medical certificate or pet certificate for their health certificate, gosh, can I even talk? That has to be submitted to VAX. And again, do I remember what that stands for? Veterinarian something, country service. I don't know what it is. I'll put it up here somewhere for you. But you have to make an appointment with VAX. And because of COVID right now, they're not actually taking any person-to-person appointments. And they do have different offices all over the country. And the thing about that is 10 days before your flight, the health certificate has to be issued by your certified veterinarian. And then that information actually has to be sent to VAX to be approved. And then of course you submit your vaccination record and your rabies certificate as well, and proof of your microchipping. So there's all these documents, and I'm going to go into that a little bit further when I do the export video, or part 2 of this series. So it has to be overnighted right now because of COVID. Within a 10-day period, you send it all to them, and then they will stamp the official PDF document. You can also send it to them electronically. However, per Thailand's requirements, they will not take an electronic document sent to them. They want the hard copy PDF that has the official stamp from the US VEX, service. So hence why I'm going to have to do that about 10 days or so before the flight to get that official document, and it's got to be sent back to me. You have to include in that overnight envelope another envelope with paid postage and return address to yourself, because they will not pay for the postage to return everything back to you. So it is a process, and it's very time constraint. It's just the time constraints are just so concerning. Anything could go wrong. You're just so worried about that. And of course, you have to consider the weekends are not business days for some of these things either, especially when you're trying to obtain import or export licensure and so forth. So you have to take that time into account in some of this. So anyway, getting back to doing the import, they want you to request the import of your animal at least 60 days in advance. Now, I read on one of the sites, it said 30 days. So I went by that. However, we were waiting because the Phuket sandbox still has not been officially put into the Royal Gazette yet as far as being approved for July 1st. So we kind of sat on our heels for a bit because we're like, what the heck? We just don't know if anything's legit or not yet. Now it seems like it's going to be approved by the end of next week. Way to go, Thailand, for cutting it close for all of us, right? So we had indeed booked our flight, and we have gone ahead and started, getting the import permit and getting Singapore Airlines to approve our dog and all of that. If you're going to request your import permit, what you have to do is you have to obtain the following items. You need a scanned copy of your passport. There is an official form called an R1-1 form. And this form is written partially in Thai and translated in English. Now, I didn't have anybody that helped me complete this form. I just kind of went with my gut on how to do the form, and I'm crossing fingers I did it correctly and that they kind of decipher what the heck is going on with how we're bringing our dog into the country. But it is the R1-1 form, and you can get that right on the Thailand embassy site when you're looking at import of animals. And I'll try to include also the link for that site below here so that you'll have that easily accessible. All right, there's also another random form, and I forget what it's called, but it's some kind of information, general information form, where it has the breed of your animal, their date of birth, just general import information, your name, your address, and it's all written in English. So I submitted that form as well. It has all the basic information, the weight of the dog, coloring, blah, blah, blah. You also have to submit your dog's vaccination history or vaccination certificate. You also have to submit their result of their rabies titer. And you need to include a picture of your animal as well. So you can just take a snapshot and upload the image, and that should suffice. And you also need to indicate to them how the animal's coming in, if the animal's coming in by cargo, or if they will be hand carry, or if they are a specialty animal, a service dog or whatever. That has to be included in that whole documentation. And I don't recall that it was on that general information form, I believe some of the forms did ask for the flight information. So you will have to include that. And then of course, your ultimate destination. Once you obtain that import permit, according to the email that I received back from Phuket Airport and for their animal control area, that import permit is good for 60 days. So if all things fall apart and go to hell, and you have to cancel your flight because of COVID's wonderful impact on us all, at least you know that the import permit is still good. Okay, so it's going to be good, valid for 60 days. Now, one thing that's really important as well, I'm going to include the email address for the Phuket animal area, okay? I'll include that down here. There is a different email address for Bangkok. So I will also include the email address for Bangkok, put that here for you. And just make sure that you're, certainly sending that information to the appropriate airport wherever you're flying into and going to be doing your quarantine at, or wherever you're staying. So since we're not flying into Bangkok, we have a direct flight into Phuket. We are doing their 14-day, Phuket sandbox, and that will be considered our quarantine, so to speak. And then from there, we will travel to Koh Samui, where will be our ultimate and final destination. Yeah, so that's kind of the import process. And I do hope I didn't confuse any of you on that process. However, another thing I have to mention. So I emailed them with all of this information last weekend. I think it was on Saturday. And remember, they're 14 hours. If you're in Arizona, it's 14 hours ahead. So they're actually in the next day. So I wanted to make sure that they had it by Sunday evening, because that would be the morning on Monday, opening business hours. And their open hours are from 8:30 to 4:30. And you want your information to arrive at least during their open hours so you don't lose a day in the processing. Another thing too, if you're flying in an animal, you have got to land during their open hours. So that was part of the consideration that we had to put into effect for booking our flight. We had to make sure we arrived in Phuket between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30 so that we could get our animal processed and get cleared through them. So remember that. Right. I emailed them last weekend and I did not hear a response back from them. So, time's ticking here. It had been at least 5 days. So last night, it was about 6:30 or 6:45 here. I decided to place a call to Phuket Airport, to their animal control area, and go ahead and get a load of how that went.
So what is it you're doing, Kim?
I am trying to call Phuket, Thailand Airport to find out about the import permit for the dog. So.
You can put on speaker.
Hello? Hello? Do you speak English?
สวัสดีฉันกำลังโทรเพื่อติดตามผลเกี่ยวกับใบอนุญาตนำเข้าสำหรับสุนัขของฉันมีใครพูดภาษาอังกฤษได้บ้าง
Hello? Hello? Yes, do you speak English? Yeah, yes, I am calling the Phuket regarding an import permit for a dog.
What's your name?
Kim,
What's your name?
Kimberly Dion.
Family to you confirm?
I'm so. What was that? I couldn't hear you.
Country, you confirm?
Yes, I have a dog I'm trying to import to Thailand.
Yeah. You send email for me?
Yes, I did send an email.
Okay. I take email for you. Please take email for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that went well.
It sounded like she recognized your name, so maybe you should email her again now. A brief email. What do you think?
Gosh. Okay.
Okay, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. So bless their hearts on the other end, because they don't speak in good English. And there I am. I'm just like, hello, hello. And half the time I can't even hear what she's saying because I think I have a bad connection. What I ended up doing was, before I made the call, I put into Google Translate what I wanted to say. So I then held the phone up to my computer, and hopefully she got a gist of what I was trying to talk to her about. And apparently she did. However, she didn't really say bye to me, and then she just kind of hung up. So what I did was I emailed her again, and because she had emailed me and requesting 2 additional items, which I was not aware of, that I had missed. So they did want the plane ticket or receipt, showing the flight information, and they did want a copy of my passport. And for some reason, I just did not include those. And so once that occurred, I then called back again, and this time I got a gentleman, and his English was a little bit better, which was so helpful. And I mean, to no fault of theirs, we're just trying to communicate, and it was just it's just funny, you just you have to keep your humor about this. But I will tell you, last night, I say that now, but last night I was freaking out over everything afterwards. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to get all this done. I can't communicate with these people. What the hell, right? So it ended up being fine. It ended up going fine. I communicated a few times by email, and that Google Translate is just freaking awesome, because I typed in what I wanted to say and I put it in the email, and I copied and pasted it in Thai language in the email. So I think everything's set. So once I sent those additional items, like I said, I called again, and I made that poor man go over and check the email and make sure he got the items. And he said all good. He was very, very straightforward with his conversation with me. All good. Import permit, 5 days, right? So I'm anticipating by next week, I will have import permit in hand. And why is that important? Because I need it for some of the other things that I'm doing as far as trying to get my dog into Thailand. So there you have it. That's a rundown of more of the import side of getting your animal into Thailand. And Thailand does not require any animal quarantine. That's another thing that's kind of important that I found out on the website. They do not, unless your dog appears very ill. If they do, their own veterinarian will go ahead and take a look at your animal and possibly quarantine them for 30 days to your expense. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, I look forward to your comments, and I will catch you
in the next video in this series, part 2, regarding export and transfer permits. Yay. Just when you thought you could pass through another country with your animal with a connecting flight, you can't do that with every country. You gotta make sure you have a transfer permit. So we'll talk about that next time. All right, guys, I hope you all have a great day. Good to see y'all. Come on back. And remember, I can't make any progress. Remember, I can't do anything with this channel unless you do 2 things for me. Okay, 2 things. If you don't do these 2 things, a very large spider could come at night and crawl on your leg. So you gotta do it for me. I need a thumbs up on this video and I need a subscribe, okay? Thumbs up and subscribe to my channel because it's only gonna keep getting better from here. All right, take care everybody. Talk to you next time and stay happy.